Welcome to How to Find Your Power When You Feel Powerless. I'm author Grace Rolson. This is Moms Helping Moms to Have Hope. I'm an award-winning author and strategy support coach for moms who are forced to co-parent with and or stuck in a high custody battle with a narcissist. I have 2 popular Facebook groups for moms, and I have 4 books for moms dealing with these issues. And today I have a guest. She's a survivor, an artist, an author herself, and a mom like me and you. So welcome. Are you there, Trish?
I sure am.
This is Trish Michaels, and I'll just briefly talk about who I am if you're just coming to my YouTube channel or finding my work. Welcome. We have some questions to explore today, like how do you find your power when you feel powerless? How do you help your children find their power? What is our power? Where is our power? And how can we increase our power when we're in these tough and terrible situations? And last video was about how to hold on to hope. And one of the things I said is like, our children are not aging backwards, thank God. They are aging forwards and becoming more independent, and they're going to be going into all the rights of their own, even if ours get taken away by the courts or by an abusive ex. I'm Grace Wilson. There's a website there. You can find out more about me, mother, author, survivor, and a thriver. Those are my past books here on the left. So You Love an Alcoholic. Did not know the alcoholic was also a narcissist. The alcoholic actually never admitted to being an alcoholic. I said, you have a drinking problem. I was with him for 15 years. He goes, no, you just have a problem with my drinking. So that was his perspective. And then going through court, my lawyer, my second lawyer, was also a dual major in psychology. And I said, why is my case not resolving? What the heck? And he said, well, your ex is a narcissist. And I had to go look that up, found out what covert narcissism is and antisocial personality dis, and everything started to make sense because things didn't make sense. So my books are on Amazon. And I always say you want to learn, heal, and grow through this, not just go through it, grow through it. And if you're ready to learn, I'm ready to teach. Means to create peace, means to stay stable and sane through the insanity. And all of my books are here in order. I say read them from left to right because then you see the progression of how I had to adopt certain mindsets. And then I had to use skillful means, and I had to empower myself with a lawyer or at least legal consultations. That was a great source of my power because I didn't think I could afford it, or I was intimidated by authority figures. So talking to a lawyer was like that. And I have a Get the Right Lawyer guide for moms to help with all of that. So come to my website. Moms usually sign up for my coaching when they don't have a lawyer. Their lawyer won't call them back. They're on their 8th lawyer. They've lost all their rights. So if you're in the battle and you need a mentor or a coach, try to get someone instead of at the end, get them in the beginning and through it all. There's some blogs on here that are free. And today my guest is Trish Michael. Here's her website. This is where I looked her up and found her. We connected on Facebook. There are good things about Facebook, believe it or not. And she had a similar story. And I went and I bought her 3 books. These are the books that I bought. And I'll just tell you, in the middle is the one we started with. And then The Sorry Monster. And I read those 2 to my 12-year-old, and she read the light one to me, which was really beautiful. And there's a great line in Find Your Happy about, well, if you keep doing the same thing, you just keep getting the same results, which that's what it was for me. So I had to talk to the experts on narcissism and co-parenting with high conflict personalities and stuff. So we're going to get into how to find your power when you feel powerless. But I want Trish to jump in and say hello and maybe tell us what you do and what's up for you now.
Well, thanks for having me. I found your group on Facebook and I was really I was towards the end of the major portion of the struggle. I don't know that I'll ever not have struggle with my ex, but I came upon it and I just had wished that I had found it prior to, because there's this beauty in knowing that you're not alone. But then I was really kind of overwhelmed with how many women are in your groups and how many people are impacted by this. And so I went straight from being like really thankful to finding your group to feeling really sad for how many people have to go through this. So basically the work that I do is wherein you're giving help to moms, I'm trying to approach it from the kid perspective, because the majority of my battle was losing my power to protect my kids, which is what I thought my job was. So I had to really come to terms with what can I do? And that's really where these books were born, an attempt to help myself and my kids find our power and are happy through this journey that we had.
That's great. I remember when I connected with you, I'm like, oh, you're trying to help the kids and I'm trying to help the moms. And what a beautiful thing, because both the
Right.
moms and the children of like high conflict or toxic parents or divorce or custody battles or DV, domestic violence or abuse by proxy or post separation abuse really need help, both the moms and the children. And I have just a couple blogs on how to help kids. I'm not a psychologist or a therapist or a lawyer, but I had a male therapist who had 35 years in the business of child therapy and gave us great tips to use that really helped us through. And occasionally he would hand us a book, and it was just so interesting that I handed him these books the other day, and he goes, oh, always looking for some new material. So he was like, which one do you recommend? I'm like, all of them. all of them. He's got kids with sensory disorder, processing disorder. He's got kids with separation anxiety, and he's got kids that are in the family court wars, because when there's a family court battle, wars are costly and there's casualties. And there's casualties of bad family court rulings, and there's casualties if you stay with the toxic person. There's casualties if you leave the toxic person. And that's what you and I both found out, was when we leave thinking we're going to give them a chance, we're going to be free and happy and can protect them, the family courts make a lot of mistakes and they have a lot of failures. And I have a whole blog on the failures. But we want to talk about today is how to find your power. And one of the things that I say is like, get a legal consultation. Some of them are free. So our power really is in our rights. A lot of us don't know that we have our rights, our choices. Many of us don't see that we have choices and options. And our powers in getting an education on narcissists or family court or things like helping children with toxic parents or coming from dysfunctional homes. Like we have power in a lot of areas, even if we feel powerless to directly help right in the moment. I think some of our power, to protect gets stripped away when we leave and we're not there. But we have the power to influence, and that's what I think these books do. And we have the power to inspire, and we have the power to be an example for our children. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. And that means I have to work on my own health and recovery and keep an education. And I have legal representation. That's a main source of my power, but I also have mentors, and those are another source of my power. So let's talk about your first book, With the Power of Choice. Here it is. We do have choices. So tell us a little bit about this one.
So this book was written for my oldest daughter, and it was actually, the first version was written whilst I was still in my marriage, and things were quite bad, and she was a teenager. And this book kind of flowed out of me as a kind of like a desperate attempt to help her to make a connection between what she was choosing for herself and what was happening in her life. And I think the irony of the timing of me writing this book is that that was really a lesson that I had to learn. And so I wrote this book to try and help her, and it ended up helping me because I had to look at the words that I'm writing and am I living this? And I think at that point I wasn't. So this was written about, gosh, I'd say 10 years ago, possibly more. And once I actually published it, I realized really what the words meant. And it really, in a very playful way, all of my books are sort of unique in that they're written in rhyme. So you don't feel accosted by the wisdom. And sometimes when you are struggling through being in an abusive relationship, when people try to give you good advice, you almost feel on the defensive, like you're not doing enough and you're not. I always found myself to feel very defensive, even if someone was trying to help me. So I find that these books help me to get calm because they're calming words, it's calming cadence. There's like children's pictures, you're reading it with your kids, but kids are getting something out of it. And then I think moms get something out of it too, because it kind of reminds us like, yes, I have a choice about the thoughts that I make. That I have in my head. Yes, I have a choice as to whether or not I give someone mental real estate. This book just really helps you to remember that happiness is a choice. And once you own that, that's when you find it.
Yeah. You know, my daughter, there was a line in this book that I loved, and I told you about it. And she got to the point where it's like, you can be you. Now that's the line that she loved. Like, see,
Aw.
mom, this author says it's okay to be me, because she's, different than me, and that's okay. And she's like, she's even saying this author says I can just be me, and that's good enough, and that's right to do, is to be myself. And that was a really beautiful moment, because we like the rhyming. So is it written in like a limerick style poetry?
Um, I think that I used to say that it is limerick, and then I looked up what limerick is, and a limerick is almost like a cheeky, naughty rhyme. So it's not a limerick.
Okay.
Um, but they are all written in rhyme. I'm not sure why that's how my brain works when I'm heartbroken, but that tends to be how my writing flows out of me when I'm dealing with hard subjects and trying to communicate like my heartfelt wishes to my kids. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, I think it's a totally a natural gift, and I think it's a beautiful thing. And I did watch a author video of how, like, your teacher told you that this isn't yours, you must have plagiarized, so you stopped all your poetry for like most
mm,
of your life, and then
yeah.
now are just finding that authentic voice, that natural gift that you had, and using it. So that's a beautiful story, because one of my favorite singers was told when she was a little girl, oh, please don't ever sing. Please don't sing. And now she's had like 30 CDs of mantras. You can look her up, Karen Drucker, and she has the same thing where a teacher said, you're terrible at this. Don't ever do it. And now she's like one of my favorite singers, because it's all in positive mantra.
Oh,
so
that's amazing.
yeah, I'm really glad that you went back to this, and are writing. So let's move on to the next book. And I'll tell you, my daughter loved that I said, "Hey, these books are written by a mom who was in a really hard marriage, and the dad wasn't so nice, and that perked her ears up." Now, I never say anything about my situation, but what I do is I say, "Oh, this person had a really hard marriage with a really tough to deal with dad, and she had 3 kids that had to put up with it." And I never say anything about her, but just talking about someone, she's relating, and that's a
Right.
beautiful thing. It's a validation that we're not alone. So let's go
Right.
to the next one. This is the third one we read, but is this the second one in your series?
Yeah. So this one was written for my son, and this one really is very specifically geared towards how I chose to communicate with my son about his father's uh, inability to process in a way that makes sense to us. This book was written the day that he actually chose to go and live with my ex-husband after our divorce, full time. We had a situation, and there were stories that were told to lawyers and judges and everyone. And as soon as those stories started to be believed, my ex used those same stories with my kids. And there's this thing that happens when your situation is so difficult that when someone offers an alternate storyline that erases the problem, it's almost like this seductive pull. So my son got kind of pulled into a lie because the pull of denial brought more comfort than dealing with what our reality was. And this book kind of explained to him how I understood that he was being pulled. I also understood that when he went there, it wasn't going to be good for him, but that I would keep holding space for him to think better thoughts and want better for himself, and that I would basically be waiting for him when he was ready to come back.
Well, that's beautiful. I mean, a lot of moms deal with this because narcissists or high conflict personalities or personality disordered parents tend to want the children to pick a side. Okay. And they will say lies, gaslight, they will do things, or even use pity, the power of pity,
Yeah.
to get the children to feel sorry for them or align with their thoughts. Some kids just go with the parent because they're afraid and they don't want to be abused or assaulted or so there's some syndromes like that that were created to explain this, which aren't exactly all there. And there's some parental alienation that goes on that narcissists do, but then they accuse the protective parents of doing it when
Yep,
the protective
exactly.
parents are just trying to protect from the abuse and the psychological damage of all that a high conflict personality disordered person can do. And the children need psychological protection. And that's where I think a good therapist and mentors and a community can help so that the children don't have to agree with the thoughts of the conflict ridden oppositional person. And like you said, sometimes it's just easy to just go along with it to shut it up because it'll just keep talking until you're worn down.
Right. Yeah.
These high conflict people, they thrive on the energy of an argument and they get power and they are energized where the rest of us get drained.
So
So
that's this book is the play between like what feels good to you and what drags you down and tuning into how you feel. And it was really so he could start to feel his way towards the truth again. Like there's a feeling that we would find when we would talk about it, like, okay, well, we're often faced with like one crappy decision pit up against another crappy decision. It's like, well, which one do we go with? And
yeah.
so it was just feeling into the decision, getting quiet enough, and whichever one felt lighter was the one that we would go with. So this book kind of like gives you a system for kids to feel into even two bad things to find the better of the two bad things. And it eventually leads you to better and better and better things.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Actually, one of my mentors and coaches when I was going through my custody battle, second or third round, she had two kids, a son and a daughter, with probably a sociopathic ex. And he just took the boy and left her with the daughter. And so then he alienated the son from the mother completely. And now that the son's in his 20s, he's coming back because he always needed the mom. He's
Right.
now back talking to his mom every day, calling her every day. So he did have these needs as a child. They were just shut down by that parent because, we are a threat because the truth is a threat to lies. So people like us that are truth tellers and authentic are real threats to these liars and false selves and people with issues. And so he's back now, and she is thankful to have this relationship with her son, but she was an alienated parent, and talks about it and has a TED talk and everything about it. And it was sad that she had to let go of her son because the war was going to be too costly. And it's glad that she can now help other moms who are being alienated from their sons. Because sometimes just the narcissist will just pick the male, and that's, discrimination and favoritism and all of that, but that's what they do. I'll take the guy if you take the girls, and I'll stop abusing you. And I've heard all kinds of stories with moms just running away thinking, okay, he abuses me, but if I leave my 3 kids with him, he won't abuse them. And I found moms in my church group that were like, don't do it. And I'm like, why? She's like, because I did. I left my 3 kids with him, and they've all committed suicide. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
all right, I'll stay in the fight. All right, if you, I got to stay here. I can't just run away from this. I have to, I can't think those thoughts. I need to just be here. And one of the things when he one more time is I just have to be here psychologically, because the most important thing I think that I was missing in my childhood was emotional support, because
Right.
there's going to be hard times, but I just
Mhm.
didn't have emotional support from my parents, and I had to get it from mentors, guidance counselors, and that's what got me through. It's that emotional support. So just letting our children know, hey, we're here for your emotions. We're here to hold them and feel them with you, and be strong in the face of tough emotions, and know that our feelings are not all facts. And just the emotional support, I think, is what children need. And that's why I always recommend trying to find a good therapist that can't be swayed, bullied, convinced that you're a crazy mom for
Right.
like trying to protect.
Yeah.
So let's move to the next one, the sorry monster. And this is
Mhm.
really good for us because we have this problem. We do. So tell us about this one.
So this one, it was written for my youngest daughter, who so through the course, I got divorced in 2018, and I didn't get full custody of my kids until the end of 2023 or 22. I don't know where we are. I think it's 2022. We've been free for about a year. Um, and just watching my kids implode on themselves and just shut down. And one of the habits that she developed, which she admittedly got from me, was saying sorry, like after everything that she said, everything that she did. Her teachers started coming in to me and saying, she's saying sorry all the time. I'm like, I try to get her to do burpees when she says she's sorry. I try to tell her to say 5 nice things after she says she's sorry. So this was kind of like my attempt at making it very lighthearted, but also personifying, kind of like her own inner child, which seems odd because she's still a child. But when you are traumatized to the extent that our kids are traumatized, it's almost like they already have an inner child that needs tending to. So this book kind of creates that situation where you have to accept that you can hear you. You can hear the things that you're saying. Your inner child can hear it too. And you've got to be kind to you. You've got to be kind to your inner child. So this monster feeds on sorries. The more you say it, the bigger it gets. It's harder to handle. But when you choose different words, it shrinks, and because it turns out it has a sorry intolerance. So its stomach hurts from all these sorries. So it was my way of trying to make it kind of fun and playful, but also really kind of get to the root of it's really like a self-worth issue that can come from, narcissistic abuse in general. And to just be more aware of your words and how you're treating yourself can be really helpful. And that's what this book is for.
Yeah, it's self-awareness is key, and children clearly, aren't self-aware that well. And even adults, that we sometimes don't realize we've gotten into some bad habits. So one of the things about being around a narcissist is they point the finger. They're toxic blamers. So whoever's around them is going to be blamed for things. And so you just get used to being blamed and having to watch out for their narcissistic rage or their wrath. So people who are saying they're sorry often are just scared into this kind of, okay, well, my go-to now is just to blame myself because this toxic dad just always is blaming others, always is blaming me. Whoever is the target of blame to a narcissist gets a lot of the psychological damage. And one of the things is it can make you get into so much self-doubt, so
Right.
much self-doubt. And then the self-doubt carried into adulthood is sabotage, self-sabotage. So
Right.
that's why I'm always saying, moms, you've got to do your own healing. You've got to find a healing program. You've got to have like somebody helping you through some type of structured healing. Like I did it through a DV counselor, a narcissistic abuse recovery program, a 12-step group, a DV support group. And I had to do the healing from all the self-doubt, and I needed validation because I was being invalidated by the narcissist. I was being gaslit. Oh, I don't have a drinking problem. You didn't see that 30 case of beer. Oh, I'm not drinking a 6-pack a day. Like always being like told that what you see isn't real. And one person in my Al-Anon group said, have you ever seen the movie Gaslight? And I was like, no. And she's like, it's an old film, but it really shows you how you can go crazy, slowly crazy with all of these little dings to your perception and everything. So I think like any help to validate and to validate children's experience, like even if you don't want them to feel bad, just saying, yeah, I can see why you feel bad, can be so helpful. Or validating children, saying, yeah, I see that too. I see
Right.
that too. And this is really great that I love the transformation in this story of, it's like, oh wait, this thing could be something else. I
Right.
like that transformation at the end. I won't spoil the story. You have to read it. And I love the alternatives. I think if I wrote this book, if I like wrote another like the Sorry Monster 2, I would have like things like the things that you have to say to a narcissistic parent to get them off your back and to still
Mm,
hold your power, like, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way, dad, or I'm sorry that happened to you today, dad. But don't say, oh, I'm sorry, and take the blame type of
right.
sorry. Maybe like differentiate what sorry can actually mean. But she loved this story. It was interesting, and the monster on the cover really piqued her interest. So this story was great. Now I know you're working on another one. Is that what's next?
So yes, that is my fourth book. That should be coming out in the next month and a half. And this one, the first three were written for my kids, and this one is my story of
Oh,
owning my own power and getting away from uh, a life that was filled with abuse and misery, and deciding that I wanted it to be different, and every day making choices to get me there. So it's kind of the story of becoming my own hero. I had this thought process that would go through my mind all the time when I was in my marriage, where I would think, if anyone outside of this house knew what was happening behind closed doors, they would pull me out of here so quick. And I
mm,
remember thinking that over and over again. And now, as a person outside of that and pretty far removed, I'm like, who the hell were you waiting for? Like, it was your job to get you out of there, and your job to set the example for your kids. So this book is kind of like my anthem to all women who are feeling like if they stay, it'll be better. And like you said, there's a cost no matter which way you go. The beauty of the choice of leaving is you become a whole person again. And that is invaluable to children, to have a strong, empowered mother. They need, especially when there is an unwell parent that you're co-parenting with, to have someone solid can make all the difference. So this was about me, how I transformed my life, and in so doing became my own hero and inspired my kids to be their own hero too.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's what you're saying is so true, and I'm sure everyone can resonate. I mean, in high school, when I was dating my daughter's father, was like, "Why are you with that jerk?" And I was like, "Oh, he's so misunderstood." and
Mm.
I stayed way too long. I took him back too many times. I didn't know what love bombing, hoovering was. I didn't realize that it was chipping away my self-esteem, all the little small slights and digs. I had no idea I had low self-esteem. I didn't know idea I had a narcissistic father because it was covert narcissism. So I was used to some of it, and they say it only takes one high conflict, disorganized parent to create a high conflict custody battle. And then there's another thing that they say it only takes one healthy parent to raise healthy, well-adjusted children.
And that's the side that I like to stick with, because that's just a much more powerful stance. Like, I
Yeah.
have power in this. I can't control him, but I can control me. And if I'm the best example of a human being and I'm really actively working to be happy every day, my kids are seeing that and they will have that in their being as well.
Exactly. And you know what I say, what I learned, okay? I learned that I could not heal while I was being actively abused. It was
Yeah.
like I'm a big open wound and the person just keeps sticking their finger in it while it's trying to heal over, and I couldn't heal until I created distance and I got, no trespassing orders, and I did modified no contact, and I set up boundaries, which there was a ton of boundary backlash. And believe me, narcissists and toxic fathers do not want to see a woman become empowered. So they will try to disempower them or sabotage them in any way they can, or just not help at all in the areas that they need help in. And a lot of the moms need to go to the local DV agency, and they say, "What is DV?" And I say, "Domestic violence." And they'll say, "Well, he never hit me." And I say, "Do you know what coercive control is? Do you know what legal abuse syndrome is? Do you know what
Right.
narcissistic abuse syndrome is?" Like, usually the DV counselors, they're free, and there's agencies everywhere, state funded, and they have seen the tactics and the tricks and the traps of an abuser. They've seen it, and they usually can connect you to resources to get free, to break free. They, some of the times, like, these abusive people, they don't want you to be free. They don't want you in their full freedom because they're stuck in their scared small self, and they want someone stuck there with them. Like, misery loves company, and they want a servant and a slave and a punching bag. And so my sponsor in my Al-Anon program was like, "Well, are you ready to get up off the floor and stop being a doormat?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm ready." And just this last round of court, my sponsor said, "Well, how does it feel to stand up for yourself?" And I was like, "Wow, is that what this was? Me standing up for myself? Is that what this whole lesson was?" And that's the thing I say to moms is learn the lesson. What's the lesson? And
Mm.
you know, they say self-esteem comes from yourself. You don't get self-esteem from someone else. So it's us esteeming ourselves to make esteemable acts of power, to empower ourselves. And it's always helpful to see that other moms have crossed over, like you and we've crossed over, but it was hard, wasn't it? It was very scary to do this.
Yeah, and it's not ever done. Like, I really can relate to your statement of saying that you can't heal, you couldn't heal until you had distance, because all of us were suffering with pretty severe PTSD, and people would make these suggestions to me, you should go here, you should go there. I'm like, you can't heal PTSD when you're still on the battlefield. Like, I can't. I have to remain vigilant. So that was a really long period of time for me, about 6 years of just being kind of in constant crisis mode. And then for the past year, just having that distance, having those boundaries, starting to address the PTSD that we've all been through, and then watching as my kids are becoming kids again, laughing and dancing around in the house, being silly again. They're excelling it in school. It's such a beautiful thing to have been through all that we've been through. And like, it's been bad. Like, both of my kids have suffered with suicidal thoughts. One of them started cutting, and they just were not themselves for such a prolonged period of time. But the resilience that they've shown, and they're just such amazing kids and doing really well. I just want to offer that hope to all moms, because it's a brutal thing to watch your kids struggle, but just know that they can and they will get through this.
Yeah, there's a lot of survivors here, and survivors that go on to be thrivers, and I call them thrivers. And we can become stronger than before. We don't have to actually be broken and beaten down and weakened. We can become stronger and wiser. And, you know, they say there's purpose in your pain. And so you and I have both found purpose from the pain that we have suffered. It's like to help other moms feel not alone. My daughter was suicidal too. She's like, I'm just going to run away. I'm like, nope, don't do that. And well, then I don't want to live anymore. And it's like, no, hang in there, honey. The family courts get it wrong, but sometimes they get it right. And sometimes you just need a different lawyer. Hang in there. I'm still here, still in this with you. And so she hung on. And I can't wait for this book to come out. When is this book coming out?
So we're working on the last illustrations. I'm already starting to put together my Kickstarter. So I'm thinking like in the next month, I'll start actively maybe putting the Kickstarter out and getting things sent to the printer. In the next 2 months, it should be out. I have there's National Superhero Day is April 28th. And so that is, I have an event scheduled there on that date to kind of launch this book and tie it all together.
National Superhero Day. I love that. Yeah, we all, us moms, we have superhero capes that we got to put on. We're like putting out all the fires and trying to deal with all the fallout. And we're weathering all the storms. And we're the more disadvantaged. We're the, we're the underdogs in this. If you got a father who's checked out of parenting, he's just there to bully the mom and the kids, and he's making all the money. We moms are usually at the other end where they're giving up all the money or foregoing child support just to have the kids more time to keep them away from abuse and try to save them their own sanity. So
Right.
I can't wait for this book to come out. So we can get it from your website. Is that true?
I don't have it up on pre-order yet, but if soon, yes.
We'll look for that. So here are my books, but let's just talk for a minute. Talking about, where do we get our power when we feel powerless? Like, where do we get it? And I talked about a few places. Do you have anything that you want to add to like where we get our power?
So for me, my power comes from taking care of myself. And that has been a hard journey for me. My childhood did not teach me to do that. And so I had to make a pact with myself, and my kids have really motivated me to do this, to care for myself like I would care for my best friend, because I'm teaching my kids how to care for themselves by how I treat myself. So every day I find power in making sure I get up early, I meditate, I write to myself. I really actively work on keeping a clear, calm mind so that I can feel okay every day. And that's been quite a journey, healing from PTSD and just everything that we've been through. So for me, my power comes from little things that I do every day that make like a really big difference in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, we do get power. And you know that self-discipline that we can cultivate, because our daily habits create our life. Like what we do every day create our life. Like these books didn't get written in one weekend. We did a little bit each day. Like a little
Right.
bit here and a little bit there. And one of the things that I tell moms to do, I mean, is to write,
Yeah.
and journal the lesson. And or if you're like Trish and you can write some poetry about it, I did poetry in between each one of those books, and I have no idea why poetry helped, but it did. And it was poetry about yoga and other things. It was nothing about what I was going through in the family court battle or with a narcissistic, abusive, alcoholic ex. It was not poetry like that. And one of the things that I do tell moms who are in it, because I developed an autoimmune disorder from 11 years of a court battle, and it's post-separation abuse. We broke up before I even knew I was pregnant, and moms get really drained. They're adrenal fatigue. They get cancers. They get autoimmune disorder. I think you're also a cancer survivor. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. I got my first cancer diagnosis 3 months after I left him. And I got my last diagnosis a year and a half ago. Do very much believe that my cancer was linked to constant traumatization. So I am hopeful. I did have a scan yesterday. I don't have the results yet, but I'm hopeful, very hopeful that the cancer portion of this program is over because the trauma portion seems to be at bay, which is great. But yeah, health and emotions and stress so linked together.
Yeah. And we're in, if you're a mom listening and you've had cancer or autoimmune disorders from the stress of a toxic, abusive ex and trying to protect your kids, or your kids being abusive like the dad, or the kids being suicidal, you're not alone. I mean, this takes a toll on a mom's mind and heart. And we're here. You can reach out so you know that you're not alone. We are survivors out there, and maybe I'll have Trish on again. We'll do some more topics if this has been helpful for you. So I'll just say my books are available on Amazon. I'd read the first one, which is about staging a comeback. So I lost a bunch in one round of family court, and the bonus step 8 is about staging a comeback in that orange yellow book. And yes, it's my survivor story, but I don't give a lot of details. I just give the self-help tools that I had to hold on to get through the fight. This is my newest book, and this is where I have the Get the Right Lawyer Guide. It's a 20-question worksheet to go into those interviews ready and prepared without all the drama, so that you can get legal advice from a lawyer. That's where you want legal advice, from a lawyer who knows all the details and is the family law lawyer, not your tax attorney. Um, uh, you definitely want to go in prepared, and it's very empowering to get additional legal consultations so that you have choices like option 1, 2, 3, and 4. And every lawyer has a different strategy and a different way to approach it. And some moms, that's why I have legal strategies. Some moms, that's another chapter, don't use lawyers at all. That is the strategy, but they still have gotten legal counsel and advice. So get a plan. There's power in a plan. My website has a lot of free blogs. It has 2 about how to help children. Those are just tips from my daughter's awesome therapist, who she still has. And this is my Navigate the Narcissist video program. It's 11 videos. It's the basics. It gets you to be sane and stabilized and start thinking strategically like a chess game, and not being lumped in as one of the high conflict parties. You do the right thing. You do the same thing. You safeguard your custody case. You follow the court order. You don't be accused of parental alienation by doing certain things. You work on your co-parenting communication, even if they can't co-parent and they can't communicate. You do things that will look good for your case. So that's in the link below. The Get the Right Lawyer Guide is there. If there's any mom that can't afford anything at all, and you're like when I started, please just send me a message. I'm happy to give some of these things to you for free. I'm here to help the disadvantaged underdog mom. And thank you so much for watching. I want to just thank you, Trish, for meeting with me. I'm not a podcast host. I'm not a a usual like TV person, and I'm just so grateful that you were able to talk with us. Never done an interview before, so I'm glad you were here. So thanks so much, Trish.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, and we will be in touch.
All right, great. Thanks.
Great. Anybody watching this video, remember to like and subscribe if you want more videos.